Hey guys, Don here. I want to talk a little bit today about something called positioning. And we're not really taught about any of this stuff in school. But one thing I was perceiving, and I've tried this a number of ways. First, when I started out practice, I was in something called BNI, and basically, BNI is called Business Network International. And it was a fun group. We met, I think it was like 6:30 in the morning for an hour and a half, and we talked about our businesses. It wasn't really a good fit for what I did as in podiatry because, there was a physical therapy place there, and I was able to refer patients to them, and they keep track of how many dollars you refer, but I never really got that much business. But there, it was where I started to kind of be interested in business, and then from there it progressed to doing this thing called strategic coach, which I've been in for a number of years. And one thing I've always heard about, I just never really understood until recently. I was reading one of the books by Robert Ringer, and he talks about, as a real estate investor, positioning himself. And the way he does it is he uses almost like a brochure or a book that he sends out to people prior to visiting them. And then he also has like a private jet as well to drive the investors around in, or fly them around. But he said his process never really changed. What he said never really changed, but the positioning really helped him. And I never really understood how that worked. And what I did realize that in my practice, I have a partner, and he is just a wonderful, I call him kind of an orthotic king in terms like everyone gets orthotics from him. And he is an ultra marathoner, he's a triathlete, he's just, a great intense guy, and he has that enthusiasm. And I think, but part of it is the positioning. And a lot of times that positioning, even before someone comes in, is that whole process. So let's talk about the things that can position us as doctors. First, it's who refers us. So if they're referred from a friend, and that friend has a great experience, that's going to position you in a good position. What we're seeing now is Google helps us to be positioned because we have great Google reviews. And let's say our office, each doctor has 200 or 300 reviews, and all the other doctors have maybe 10 in other offices. That's really positioning us, and they'll go, and what I typically hear patients say, I said, well, how'd you hear about us? And they said, well, I did my research. And really what that means is I Googled you, and I saw a couple of reviews. And then I usually say, yeah, people have some nice things to say about us. And then when they finish their visit, I'll ask them, you saw a review, and would you mind, if you had a good experience, telling others how we did? But that's another way of positioning. Recently, though, so referrals from whoever, whether it be a physical therapist, whether it be from a primary care doctor, whether it be from Google, that really positions us even before the patient comes in. So that's one way. Another way that, if you're kind of high tech, is positioning yourself with some type of book that you've written, or some type of a podcast or a video or something else like that. That kind of positions you in a good way. And what I found is I put these books together years ago, and I never really knew how to use them to position myself. I was thinking I was going to sell them, and that really flopped because no one really bought them. I gave them away to patients, but they didn't really value it. Where I find that they really work are I've given them to, for example, physical therapy places, and I'll give them like 10 books, and they'll give them to patients. Let's say they're referred over by a primary care for Achilles tendonitis. They'll give them the book on Achilles tendonitis, and that really positions me, and it prepares the patients before they come in for what they're going to expect. And then the same way is done with books and videos. And lately, I did a few videos on like CariFlex. So I had a patient that came all the way from another state for me to put a fake nail on them. And the reason it was because I was positioned, and they were able to, I think they found it on the CariFlex website, and then they saw some of my videos on it. And so what I would propose to you is the positioning should come before you see them. So whatever you can do before you see the patients in the office is going to position you better. So I have some other kind of ideas in kind of the back of my mind, and so I'll just kind of share those with you. The first thing would be when someone makes an appointment for your office, a lot of times they get all that initial paperwork they have to fill out. Well, with a medical record, whenever you have a new patient visit in your medical record, you could very easily automate a way to send them a positioning, PDF or even something in the mail. And you could say that we're going to be sending you something out. And what I would like to receive, or what I've kind of been impressed when I've gotten something, is you could get a little intro letter. You could have some of your Google reviews on there. If you've written some articles, if you've had some videos, you can do all of that, and you're kind of positioning yourself and even giving them some information prior, like on the most common conditions. They can be positioned and learn more about those before they come and see you. But the key is this needs to be automated. I find a lot of times we do, and I'm guilty myself, I try to do these one-off things. I'm going to send them a letter, and really, I don't have the bandwidth, or I don't have staff to send out letters to everyone before they come in. But it's very easily to set this up in your medical record, where when someone makes an appointment, it'll automatically trigger them to get a text message and an email. The same way they get the initial patient paperwork, they can get this kind of positioning letter to them and just say how great you are. And then when they come in, they're going to be prepared. Now, some might not look at it. Now, that's something I want to kind of explain as well. And I think Lorcan O'Donnell, who I think is great. If you haven't listened to his podcast, he has a great podcast, and I really admire what he does. And he's put together this book on more practice profits. And he said to me, he said, Don, no one really reads the book, but they want the book. And it's the same way I found with plantar fasciitis. I'll give them the book, and they don't care. They don't read the book. People just want to be spoon-fed, so they'll come and see us. Anyway, you could give out all of your secrets, and first of all, no one will probably ever read them. And then second of all, no one's going to do them. And what Lorcan has told me, and this is kind of interesting, is he said, Don, I give all my secrets in my podcast and in the book. I tell everything that people need to do, but people still want help. And I feel that's the same way with our patients. We can give them, and they can Google it, they can YouTube it, and they can kind of learn theoretically what they should do, but they really want you to guide them. And so I find sending this stuff out prior and it coming from you, and you being the one that's positioned in the best way, is really going to help your practice. So those are some thoughts on positioning. I want to invite you guys, or I just let you know that as I'm doing my interviews, I am putting them live on the podcast, and so the same day I do them, I'm uploading them, so you're going to see there's new content. They're not going to show up for a couple of months on podiatry.com, which is where the actual videos go, but if you're listening to this podcast, you'll get them right here. And also on Podiatry Practice Mastery, I've added a section on there on Shockwave, where there are just some great resources. So if you guys are interested in Shockwave or do Shockwave, just a ton of resources that I found helpful for me, increasing the amount of Shockwave I do. And frankly, it's not complex. The more you learn, the more you're going to do it. And you have to believe in it. And so I'm also going to add a section this week on orthotics. And there was a really great video, actually interview that Chris Milkey did. And just a shout out to Chris. And just a colleague from Minnesota. So I'm going to put that video on there. I'm going to also put a couple of other references if you want to learn more about orthotics. Once again, with orthotics, the more you learn, the more you're going to kind of do with them. Okay? Invite you to check that out. Okay, guys, have a great day.